Welcome to the deep dive. If you are a transport business owner, you know exactly how the story starts.
Oh yeah, it always starts with hustle.
It starts with you, the owner-driver, pouring everything you have into it, finding every load, driving every mile, chasing every single invoice.
And personally fixing every breakdown on a Sunday afternoon.
Exactly. And that success, it's built entirely on your grit, on your ability to just do the work. It's why your business survived and grew beyond that first truck.
That kind of intensity is, it's a prerequisite for starting any tight margin operation.
Mm,
You have to be the chief everything officer just to keep the lights on.
absolutely. But here's the paradox we're diving into today. The very hands-on, high-effort approach that ensured your early survival.
Right.
It often becomes the single biggest reason growth just stalls. When the company hits a critical
Whether
mass,
that's 2 trucks, 5 or 10.
you've hit a ceiling, and that ceiling is built really entirely out of your own capacity.
And that's our mission for today. We need to understand that critical and necessary leadership evolution. Your initial value, it came from operational execution.
From doing the work.
But if you want to scale, the next phase of value has to come from building the system that executes the work consistently
Yeah.
without you.
Without your constant intervention. It's moving from the driver's seat to the director's chair.
That's it.
We've synthesized sources that really dissect these common growth ceilings in transport and logistics. They specifically highlight where the owner's mindset has failed to evolve with their fleet.
So we need to figure out how to stop being the hardest working person in the business.
And start being the person working on the business.
Right.
So, okay, let's talk symptoms. How do you know you're stuck? It's not just that you're stressed. Every owner is stressed.
Well, of course.
But the specific symptom of hitting this operational ceiling is that the pressure, it feels heavier as you grow, not lighter.
That's a key distinction.
You're putting in longer hours to manage more trucks. Cash flow still feels tight, even with higher revenue. And you have this, perpetual feeling of being busy, but not really making any forward momentum.
That sensation, that feeling of treading water while working harder than ever, that is the clearest signal that your business has outgrown its current leadership structure.
So the value then is in recognizing the specific daily behaviors that are actually creating that stall.
Exactly. The warning sign.
Let's list them. These are things you're probably seeing every single week. First, you are still involved in every operational decision.
And not just the big ones.
No. We're talking about which driver takes which route, approving a minor repair cost, or, calling a customer yourself about a slight delay.
If you are making dozens of those small decisions a day, you are not leading. You're clerking.
What's the second sign?
Second, and this is crucial for the owner's quality of life, the entire business struggles the moment you take time off.
Oh, that's a big one.
Even if you manage to grab a long weekend, your phone is glued to your hand, the team needs constant guidance. It just proves how fragile the whole model is.
That's a business that owns the owner, right? Not the other way around.
Absolutely.
What about the problems that just won't go away, the ones that keep popping up?
That's the third sign. Problems repeat themselves instead of being faced permanently. You deal with the same recurring maintenance issue because you only have time to patch it up, not to, overhaul the preventative system.
You're only fixing the symptoms.
Right. Or you keep having late paperwork because you never built a simple standardized checklist for the drivers.
Okay, number 4.
4, cash flow feels tight even when all your trucks are fully utilized and busy. This is where that gut feeling meets the spreadsheet.
You're working 24/7, you're running great numbers on paper, yet the bank account balance is always precarious.
And that usually points to a strategic issue, like pricing or costing problems that you just don't have time to even see.
And the 5th sign?
5, and maybe the most telling sign of all, your staff waits for instructions instead of taking ownership.
They bring you problems, not solutions.
Exactly. They are waiting for your explicit approval before they do even basic tasks. If they can't move without your say-so, you're not their leader. You are their primary workflow engine.
It makes sense, though, why owners hold on so tightly. In transport, margins are thin, fuel costs are all over the place.
Driver retention is tough.
Right. So staying hyper-involved feels like the safest way to manage all that risk. But you said something earlier that I thought was profound. You said, control often replaces clarity. Can you unpack that a bit?
It's just human nature. When we're faced with all that complexity, we focus on what we can immediately control.
The details of today's dispatch, the exact fuel price this morning.
Precisely. But by spending, say, 90% of your mental energy controlling the immediate, you spend 0% on gaining clarity on the big picture.
The strategic environment.
Where the market's going, which of your contracts are actually profitable, how your competitors are innovating. You're so focused on the truck's speed, you've forgotten to check if you're even heading to the right destination.
So the direct consequence of that is the bottleneck effect.
The bottleneck effect, exactly.
If every decision, large or small, has to pass through the owner, you become the functional limit of the business. You can only make so many decisions in a single day.
That's it. The company cannot process information or execute tasks any faster than you can approve them.
So the business stalls at 5 or 10 trucks because you, the leader, are just completely overloaded.
And ironically, that feeling of control you get from signing off on everything is what prevents the business from ever growing beyond your immediate reach.
Which brings us to the biggest mental hurdle here. This idea of letting go. I think a lot of owner-operators here let go, and they instantly think it means they have to accept lower standards.
Less quality, less dedication.
Yeah.
And that is the absolute opposite of the truth. Letting go does not mean lowering the bar. It means raising the system's capacity to consistently meet that bar, no matter who is on shift.
So you're shifting from being the sole guarantor of quality
To being the architect of quality. You are replacing your personal high-effort enforcement with an institutional low-effort structure.
I like that. Replacing personal enforcement with institutional structure. So if an owner stays stuck in that loop, always in the cab or the dispatch office, what's the quiet damage that's being done?
The hidden costs.
Yeah, what are the hidden costs of constant firefighting?
We see 4 major areas where the damage is happening quietly. The first is maybe the most dangerous. Strategic thinking just disappears.
It's gone.
When you're busy chasing down a missing delivery receipt or coordinating a last-minute repair, you have 0 time to step back and look at the actual long-term health of the business.
You're too busy making sure the truck runs today to analyze why you lost a major contract last month.
Precisely. You're not analyzing customer concentration risk, which means one big client leaving could cripple you. You're not adjusting your fleet mix.
Your business just becomes purely reactive.
A crisis management unit, not a forward-looking enterprise.
Okay, what's the second cost? The people side of things.
The second cost is that the team never matures. Staff growth is completely stifled. When the owner holds all the responsibility, the people around them naturally shrink to fit that limited space.
They have no room to grow.
Why would they take initiative if they know every decision has to be ratified by you anyway? Accountability stays weak because they can always just say, well, I was waiting for you to tell me what to do.
You're training them to be dependent, which just keeps you stuck.
That's it. And the third cost, it affects resilience. The business becomes fragile.
Because it all depends on one person.
Absolutely. The business becomes risky. If all the operational knowledge, all the key relationships, if they only exist inside the owner's head, the whole operation is brittle. What happens if you get sick? Instant chaos. A sustainable business has to be able to function consistently, even if the leader isn't physically there for weeks. Dependency on one hero is not a strategy. It's a liability.
And the final hidden cost really summarizes the whole problem.
It does. Growth feels painful.
You took on that new contract, you bought that 10th truck, and what did you really gain?
More workload, more stress, and less freedom.
If adding capacity only increases your personal burden, it just means the leadership structure is broken. You are paying for growth with burnout.
Not with true profit and freedom.
That perfectly sets the stage for the solution. We know the stall happens if the leadership role itself hasn't changed, so we need to redefine what strong leadership actually looks like in this environment.
And it's not about sitting in an ivory tower. It's about working at the right level.
What does that mean, though? Working at the right level?
It means moving away from execution and toward measurement, structure, and direction. The goal is to set extremely clear expectations, measure the handful of numbers that truly matter, and then make fewer but much, much better decisions.
Decisions that create stability and predictability.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's break down the 4 intentional shifts that unlock this progress. Shift 1 is from doing to directing. How does an owner stop doing and start directing without, feeling like they're abandoning their team?
This shift is about moving your focus one level higher. When a dispatcher tells you about a late truck, don't immediately jump in to fix the late truck.
Which is the natural instinct.
It is. Instead, you direct your attention to why that problem occurred in the first place. Was the late truck due to poor maintenance scheduling? Was a billing error caused by a confusing template?
So you stop fixing symptoms.
And you start fixing the root cause. You build a standardized response system that can handle 80% of those routine problems automatically.
That requires a lot of trust in the new system. Which brings us to shift 2. From memory to structure. We see so many great small transport companies that rely entirely on the owner's encyclopedic knowledge of, well, everything.
And that institutional knowledge that's trapped in one person's head,
What?
it's a massive risk. If something only works because you remember the precise sequence of steps for a specialized load.
It's going to fail the moment you step away.
The solution is structure. It's routines, simple, mandatory checklists, documented processes that are easy to follow. You transfer knowledge out of your head and into the business's operating manual.
And that frees up your mental space for the strategic stuff.
It does. And that process of documenting also standardizes quality, which leads to shift 3, from busyness to visibility. An owner who is busy feels productive, but are they effective?
Probably not.
Because activity is on insight. Busyness means running around. Visibility means knowing exactly where the profit is hidden and where the cash is leaking out.
So what does that look like practically?
This shift means implementing dashboards, even simple ones, that tell you the true cost per mile for each truck, the profitability of each customer, and your actual utilization versus your potential.
So you stop managing based on gut feeling.
And you start directing based on data. That is how you gain real control without actually micromanaging the day-to-day. You manage the numbers, and the numbers manage the operation.
Right. So if the numbers show a specific truck is underperforming on fuel,
You direct the maintenance manager to investigate that specific asset. You don't have to watch every single trip. You just watch the data that summarizes all the trips.
okay, and finally shift 4, moving from constant pressure to healthy predictability.
This is the outcome of the other 3. Good, intentional leadership is defined by its ability to reduce surprises.
It makes the whole organization feel calmer.
When you have structure from shift 2 and visibility from shift 3, predictability just follows. It comes from better planning, setting realistic expectations, and adopting calmer decision-making. The constant sense of panic just fades.
Now, let's address a point of frustration. We talk to owners who try to implement these changes, but they still stall. They try to delegate, they try to write checklists.
And 6 months later, they're right back in the weeds.
Exactly. Why does the execution of this shift so often fail?
I think it's because leadership in the transport sector is typically learned haphazardly. It's learned through the painful process of operational knocks, not through any kind of intentional management training.
So they try to implement things they read about.
But those systems are often way too complicated for a busy, blue-collar environment. Nobody uses them, so they get abandoned.
What are some of those practical pitfalls you see?
A huge one is focusing on the wrong metrics. They'll celebrate high gross revenue, but they completely ignore the cost per mile or asset utilization.
The numbers that actually matter to profitability.
Another one is trying to delegate tasks without clearly defining accountability. You might delegate dispatching, but if the dispatcher doesn't have the authority to make an emergency decision, they're just going to call you anyway.
Which defeats the entire purpose.
Yeah. Right. So the change effort fails because the structure is either too complex or the delegation is incomplete.
So intentional leadership requires a clear focus on simple, repeatable actions.
Yes. The most successful businesses are run by leaders who have fundamentally redefined their job.
So what does that intentional leader prioritize every day? What are their non-negotiables?
Their priorities shift completely away from immediate tasks. First, their primary role is to protect cash flow, period. Second, they focus their limited time entirely on decisions, not tasks.
That's a big one.
Third, they obsessively ensure the business works even when they are not there. That's the resilience test. And fourth, they provide clarity to their team rather than pressure. They clarify the standards, and then they trust the system and the people to meet them.
Which leads us to the core takeaway here. The fundamental truth you have to accept to move beyond this ceiling.
Go on.
Running a truck and running a sustainable, growing transport business.
Yeah.
They are two completely different jobs.
They require completely different skill sets.
Absolutely. And the reward for embracing the shift is
It's huge.
it's exponential. When your leadership finally catches up with the size of your operation, you make better strategic decisions. You build stronger, more autonomous teams. You see healthier cash flow.
And most importantly,
You build a business that serves you and your life goals instead of the other way around. That's the moment you unlock true, sustainable growth.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into this challenge of the owner-driver's growth ceiling. We've covered the clear signs of the stall, the quiet damage of constant firefighting.
And the four essential shifts, moving from doing to directing, from memory to structure.
Busyness to visibility, and from
So,
pressure to predictability.
and just remember, structure, systems, and visibility. Those are the tools you use to replace your personal operational control. They're what allow you to sustainably work at that higher directional level.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought, and it's drawn directly from the challenge in these sources.
If adding more contracts and more trucks is currently costing you more freedom and more personal stress than it should, are you truly prepared to trade the immediate familiar comfort of doing every job yourself for the exponential long-term power of a structured, scalable business?
Answering that question honestly,
Hmm.
that is the most important step in recognizing that your business is ready for the next level of leadership.